Bienvenue, benvenuti, and welcome to Expatriotical, the podcast for expats, travelers, and other adventurous souls. I'm Chandra, and after living as an expat with my husband and 4 children in 2 different countries for almost 6 years, I've learned the arts of pivoting during pitfalls, traveling tastefully for less, and soaking in amazing new cultures without losing your own. Join me as we dive into the joys and challenges of travel and the expat life in every episode. Hello, everyone. It is another gray, drizzly day here in Paris as I am recording this episode, and I am ready for spring to fully kick in. But by the time you hear this, the sun will most likely be shining for all of us, as it will already be July. Today, we are doing the second of our summer sit-down episodes, where most of the summer, at least the end of June and the entire month, we will have interviews, and I am so excited about it. Last week, you heard from my 4 kiddos about what they thought about living abroad. And today we are going to hear from my amazing friend, Mallory Steinbach. To me, she is the queen of learning to pivot, because sometimes plans change with or without our approval and with or without much notice. And it can be a moment or even a season of sink or swim. And in my opinion, Mallory is not only swimming, she is racing through the waters of pivoting as an expat. She is a regular Michael Phelps of pivoting, y'all. She is amazing. So let's dive right in. Everyone, this is my dear friend, Mallory Steinbach, and we have known each other for years. And I know a lot of your story, Mallory, but can you please tell everyone else that is listening a little bit about yourself, where you're originally from, and what does your family dynamic currently look like? And I should say, welcome. Goodness, I didn't even welcome you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting because I look forward to your podcast every week. It's my Wednesday treat when I go pick up the kids. It's like the perfect length to get from my home to my kids' school, and I just love it. And actually last week, a bit of your voice was playing still at the end, and the kids were like, oh my gosh! So yay. They all think you're famous, and they are also big fans of your podcast.
Oh, I love it.
So my name is Mallory, and I am originally from Toronto, Canada. And my family is 6 people. So myself, my husband, Justin, and my 4 children, 3 of which are triplets, and 2 girls, 1 boy, and 1 older daughter.
And just so that everybody, I just have to brag on you a little bit. If people have heard of Irish twins where 2 babies are like less than a year apart, Mallory and her husband have Irish quadruplets, just so we know. So we've got some close in age kids, and they are amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's start off by asking you, what started this big adventure for you being an expat?
So Justin and I, we moved to Paris in 2011 for Justin's job. Okay. And I became the CIP. Back in 2011. At the time, he was working for Danone, and he had been working with Danone in Toronto, Canada, and then was relocated to the head office in Paris. And so that began our journey, our expat journey in Paris in 2011.
Okay, and I'm going to insert, because I have learned this since living here, that for all of my American, maybe I can say North American, it's Danone, just so you all know, that it's the yogurt, the water, yes. So it's a company that you're familiar with. And so how long did you all live in, sorry, I'm not trying to correct your pronunciation. I'm just trying to help
No, you absolutely have to say it like that for North Americans.
For North Americans. Otherwise they're like, what? Like, that's what I was. Yes. I was like, you work for who?
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So how long in total did you all live in Paris the first time?
The first time. So the first time we were there until December of 2017. So we were 6 years.
6 years.
In Paris.
Okay. And from Paris, you moved to Milan, Italy. That's where we know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so was that a big change for you? They're both like kind of, romance languages, Latin based languages, and I mean, they're right next to each other in part. So was that a big change?
Yeah, so it was quite a big change, I think, for our family dynamics and what we were going into because when we left Paris, obviously having triplets plus one was very busy,
Yeah.
but the kids were in a half day outdoor gardery program actually in the 16th in the Jardin de Ronneleg for the Paris listeners. It was such a beautiful experience, but we were going from a half day program and then when we were moving to Italy they were going to full-time preschool, which
Okay.
was really great, but definitely an adjustment period, but was really nice. I think because where you and I lived in Milan, just outside of Milan, about 20 minutes, it was a bit different in the sense that in Paris we walked everywhere.
Yeah.
And we had a car, but actually we had we had a just a standard car, so we didn't all fit in it. It was really, we called it our grocery grabber when we wanted to do a big grocery shop. So we went from a city where we were walking everywhere, pushing the kids in the strollers, and then we went to Milan where I was driving again, which was quite an adjustment.
Yeah.
The kids were going to school, but I think the biggest adjustment going from Paris to Milan was the people and the warmth. you know, Italians just love children, love families, and I just felt very welcomed from the first second we were there. It was just
Wonderful.
like a big Italian hug, upon arrival. They were not phased by, at this time, it was December 2017, so we had 4 children under 2 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And they were not phased by this. They loved it, in fact, and one of your Shanselaks, our favorite restaurant in the whole entire world.
Yes.
We could go to a restaurant and they loved that they had 4 high chairs and
Yeah.
we just immediately felt very comfortable in Italy, and I think having the base of French language was helpful. Learning Italian. And it was a smooth transition, as smooth as it can go, moving with 4 children under 2. I think it was fairly smooth.
That's good. That brings back the memories of being in Ristorante Borgo di Vione, the Borgo we all call it. Are you going to Borgo?
Yes.
With the kids and just being like, it's okay. Like as long as they don't, if we sat outside on the patio, I'm like, don't drop the glasses on the cement. That was about like the one thing. But even if that happened, like they're like, oh no, va bene,
Yeah.
it's fine. It's
It
fine.
was totally fine. Everything
chill.
was fine there.
It was so great. So then after about 5.5 years, if my math is right, of living in Milan, you moved back to Paris, which coincidentally coincided, a little bit of a tongue twister there, with my family moving to Paris as well, and you became my Paris guru. How did that feel, stepping back into a city you had already lived in?
Yeah, so it was actually 4.5 years, but
4.5. Okay.
4.5, but COVID in the middle there. I feel like we all, I don't know, time was warped.
It was warped. It was really warped.
It was really warped. So it was really exciting to go back. I think because you have the knowledge, or you think you have the knowledge, I should say. You think you have the knowledge going back, and we certainly did in some elements, right? Like in terms of housing, in terms of where we wanted to live and where things were and how the city worked. I think we felt very comfortable going back in that sense. It was, and exciting, and going back to so many people that we knew felt very comfortable. Having kind of, I think a lot of time expats go to a city and they don't know anyone.
Yeah.
Right? They don't know anyone. Like maybe they know, if they're lucky enough to have a relocation agent, they have that person, but that's it, right? They don't know anyone. And so going there and being like, okay, I've got friends there. I've got people who can help me, who can guide me. That was really reassuring to sort of have that.
That's awesome. And I would say, from my perspective, moving with you at the same time, I mean, not but I mean, sort of with, because Justin took Mindy, our hamster, because we had a massive rearrange of thinking we're driving to having to fly. And for those of you that don't know, hamsters are not allowed on planes, apparently. So at least on the planes we were supposed to fly with. So anyway, your husband drove our hamster from Milan to Paris, which was so kind. Justin, thank you again so much. And so, but having you here was really like, if a person ever gets that opportunity, it's just so wonderful to have like one person where you could be like, hey, is this normal, and it's so nice. It really is. It's almost a luxury, if I'm honest.
Absolutely. It
Okay,
definitely is.
You had pivoted for the second time ish, okay, now we're back in Paris. And that was with the same company, though, that you had moved to Italy for. Is that correct?
That's correct, right?
Okay.
So when we moved so probably about 4 years into our first Paris run, Justin accepted a new job with Barilla, which is based in Italy. And so he was able to work remotely in Paris for a number of years. And then that was why we moved to Milan, was to be closer to the head office. And probably a lot of your listeners will know, in Italy and in Spain, I believe, there's a tax regime where you save on taxes for a 5-year term. And so that's kind of where our expat benefits were running out in Italy. And so that was why we had the option to head back to Paris, because we felt that not that we loved Paris more than Milan, but just we felt a bit more at home there. We thought, that this would make more sense for our family.
And so when you did that, it would basically, were you thinking, okay, this is probably our forever city?
That was the plan, that we were going back, and, we loved our time in Milan, but we just felt, for us, everything from a language perspective, being Canadians, French was, we thought, going to be a more useful language. We loved the medical system in France versus Italy. There were just a lot of things that we preferred, and then also that we had a lot bigger community as well. And then, coincidentally, you and your family going there was just meant to be, right?
Yeah, kismet.
It just all fell into place.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so then you arrive at like end of June, beginning of July, 2022, but then fast forward to March-ish of last year, 2023. Justin got the opportunity to take a role at a different company. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So, Justin had been approached by this company, actually when we were moving to Milan, about this job. Yeah, originally. And I was like, no, we are not entertaining anything. We're already on we're on a train to Milan. So, he turned it down then. And then actually, the opportunity arose actually in September.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was like, you are crazy. Absolutely not. And I think, Justin, knowing what he knows, and, I think following his heart, and, and knowledge as well, thought, I'm going to keep, going and interviewing. And I just said, like, don't tell me. I don't want to know anything until there's an offer on the table. And then, in fact, in March, he did. He said, remember when you told me not to talk about that with you until there was an offer on the table? And I was like, oh my goodness. And there was an offer. Yeah. Okay. So there was an offer to go to Dubai.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it was a really amazing career opportunity for Justin. And, I think we made the right choice by making the move, and we're really, really enjoying it.
Oh, that's so good. That's amazing. So what were your thoughts and feelings and emotions? Like, how this is your third pivot. So, how did you pivot, which I think you've done beautifully, by the way, from thinking that you were in your forever city, which you loved, and then realizing, okay, wait, we're going to move again in under 1 year?
Yeah, and it was actually like under a year, like because we didn't have to do anything with our lease. It was quite hilarious.
Wow. Oh, my
It was under a
goodness.
year. It was. I think looking back at it, I think when you no, I don't think a lot of expats ever return to a city. Not often, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's quite interesting when you go back, you remember it how you were in that moment in that
Oh,
city,
okay.
right? Like it can be, I think, dependent on a lot of things, on like where you are in life. Are you single? Are you married? Do you have kids? And when we left Paris, we had tiny, tiny babies, tiny people, like, 1.5 and 2 years old. And then fast forward, we were returning with 6 and 7 year olds.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really different experience when you're coming back with a different dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Paris, it was for us it was a bit more difficult. It coming back from what we knew,
Mm-hmm.
what we thought we knew, and I think when we were living in Milan, where we were both living and having, nice gardens for the kids to run around, and then moving to Paris in an apartment. And, we chose to say, because we're not traditional expats, with education packages and travel packages, we chose to go the public school route. And I think going having such a harsh change, I think, was, where we were at the American School of Milan,
Yeah.
coming to a public school in France, I think was quite a drastic change for our kids. So I think, but I think as adults, I think for us, I mean, I still just love the beauty of Paris, the architecture, the museums, just sitting in a garden. I think as an adult, it was the same for us, but I think as a family dynamic, it was a bit different. So I think I was also excited at the fact of looking at Dubai, because I think it was going to offer us a different um, setup for our family as
Yes.
to what we had in France. And the wonderful thing about being an expat is that I have three very good friends, two of which that live in Dubai and one that live in Abu Dhabi. And these three friends were friends that I made from when we first moved to Paris in 2011. And those
Amazing.
friends, yeah, and those friends had moved on to, London, Edinburgh, South Africa, Cairo, and anyways, have all ended up in the UAE. And so I just felt this sense of relief again, because I was like, oh, I know that these three friends are going to make sure that I am set up and know what I'm doing in Dubai. So I felt very comfortable in that sense, knowing that I was going to already have that support system,
Yeah.
um, waiting there for me, and on the ground for us as well. Their input and help for us was just made this pivot, I think, just the smoothest one we've had to date.
And I think that that is kind of a telling thing, that the community that you are building as an expat could also possibly be your community later on, even sometimes if virtually. I know that that can be a bit of a stretch, but sometimes, I mean, like, you've experienced it now, in Dubai, and I experienced it with moving here because you were here,
Yeah,
and nothing really is wasted in this, in like the efforts that you make to have that community, to make friends, etc. Like, that could very well be used later on. So I mean,
absolutely.
not to say I'm not using you. That's not what I mean, but like, it's could be
No,
such a blessing to you later on. So
absolutely.
yeah. So is there anything that you did as a last hurrah in Paris before you made the move to Dubai?
Well, the one thing that we did do, we did a river cruise, which was really fun. We had always
Nice.
done the bateau bus, where you can kind of hop on and hop off. But we booked a private cruise just for the six of us, just for our
Oh,
family. And it was actually Father's Day too. So it kind of all, came wrapped up in one package. But it was so nice to, be able to sit on the boat, enjoy, some food and some drinks, and just like, I think that's always the best way to take in Paris is just, cruising along the Seine. You get a glimpse of everything. And it was kind of a nice activity to do to like see everything one more time in one shot.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we did that like just a couple days before we left. So it was a really nice way to close out our say official living time in Paris. But I always say, I joke that we never say goodbye to Paris. It's always a see you soon. And I kind of say that with every city that we've lived in because I think it always becomes a part of you and you're never you're never gone. You always think about it. It's in your memories. It's always there and I think if you really love a place you're always going back too.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. So, how about now? Like, how is everybody adjusting and thriving? And what do your kiddos think?
Yeah, so everybody is super happy. It's been really smooth. Like I said, I had a support system here, which I think made everything so easy. One of my really best friends, like I said, from 2011, her and her husband and two daughters live here, and it's just made it so easy. The kids are all the same age, so they already had friends when they arrived, which was really wonderful for the kids. And they've settled in so well to their school. I think that's, you know, when you're an expat choosing a school for your kids, it's kind of it's a big decision and it can be really difficult. And I think what was quite unique for us was that we were looking to separate our triplets because they had always been in the same classroom in Italy and in France, and because it's quite difficult to find multiple year groups in a school.
Yes.
We never found that in Italy, and we didn't find that in Paris either. So when we were looking for schools, because Dubai is such a big population and a big community, every school that I had on my top 5 list was like, yeah, we have 6 or 7 year groups. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
wow. So it was quite a difficult decision to narrow down the schools, but we definitely made a wonderful choice. The kids are really thriving. They're really loving the amount of sport that is played at schools in Dubai and in particular at our school. Because I would say in Europe, if you're at a public school, not an international school, but if you're at a public school, sport is done outside of school hours,
Yes.
typically on a Wednesday,
Yes.
and not included in your normal education. So my kids went from doing PE like 30 or 45 minutes every second week to
Yeah.
now doing it 3.5 hours a week. And they're just, and a mix of things. They're doing, an hour of swimming, an hour of different games, general PE, and then like a wellness element of like yoga. So they just are, it's really well rounded. And I think they feel really comfortable because Dubai is just such a diverse population. There's just so many people from all around the world. And I think, everybody, there's just so many languages spoken, and so many different cultures celebrated every day. So they're really enjoying that. And I think they just feel very included because, there's, I'm trying to think, I was looking up the population for you, the population breakdown, and all I could find was from 2023. But there's 10 million people in the UAE,
Okay.
and 11% are local Emiratis, and 88% are expats. So
Wow.
that gives you sort of a bit of a picture of how it is to be here. You just really feel like you're in this beautiful melting pot. And so I think it's made all of us feel very, very comfortable.
So that is so unexpected. Like that demographic there is just really unexpected and really beautiful. And I would think that well, I guess that kind of helps me to segue into that. So, has it been a cultural change for you because it's such a melting pot and you've come from places that can be diverse? Or, I mean, what would you say about that? Like, have there been little, for example, you mentioned the Wednesday sports thing. That's because on Wednesdays here in France, like, there's no school most of the time. My kids go to school, but again, it's because it's an international
Yes.
school. So, how has that kind of transition been for you?
I think I mean, there hasn't been anything really. I mean, I would say probably the most shocking thing is the weather here. It's very
Okay.
hot. But culturally, I think the wonderful thing about the UAE and Dubai is that you don't feel a strong pressure because there are so many cultures and languages and religions. You don't, I think sometimes, I'll just use the example of France and Italy, maybe sometimes you feel, pressured to, to speak a language, and you might feel bad about yourself if you can't,
Yes.
find the word for something, or understand something. I don't feel that here because
Really?
no, I don't feel that at all because English is the common language. I mean, my children are learning Arabic at school, but I've never been in a situation where I haven't, I haven't felt uncomfortable, or there's never been a situation where I feel like that. So I think that's a really really nice thing about this country. And it's not like I think it's great to learn another language. I think it's really, really important. But, there definitely were times in France and Italy in the beginning, days, when you're like in a grocery store, being like, oh my gosh, how do I say baking soda? How do I,
Oh
I
my,
don't know. I'm just
yeah.
throwing things out there, but you don't have that barrier here, which has been really smooth.
That's wonderful. I mean, that is a very refreshing thing to hear because I cannot tell you. In France, I will say, be honest, like I have not made as great an effort, and I don't know. But in Italy, I just felt that constant pressure to try to
Yes.
learn because you, in a lot of spaces, you really needed it. You really
Yeah.
needed
No, no,
the
we didn't have a
language.
choice in
Yeah,
Italy. We didn't have a choice. We had to,
yeah,
right?
you had to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's
Yeah.
wow, that's refreshing. I think even for if there's any people out there that are thinking like, well, that's just the one thing. There are places. I mean, I guess that kind of goes to show there are places where you can go where if English is your first language, or maybe even if it's your second and you're comfortable in it, you don't have to take on that burden of learning
Yeah.
another language. If you're like, I really that's like the one thing that I don't want to do, you know.
Yeah.
So it's possible. That's super interesting. So would you say, like, what would you say? I should say to the CIP, the completely irreplaceable partner for anybody that hasn't joined us since episode 2, who finds her or himself in your shoes, moving unexpectedly after such an abbreviated time in their new country. Do you have any words of wisdom or encouraging thoughts?
I think just leaning into it and just going with it. I think you've just got to jump in, and it can be really daunting to think about all the different facets of a move, the movers, finding a new house, finding a school. It can be overwhelming, but I think there's always a reason why an opportunity is bringing you somewhere. It could be for multiple reasons. In the end, with Justin, his whole department was actually relocated to Amsterdam. So either way,
Oh,
we were going to, in
wow.
the end, yeah. So in January of this year, we would have had to move to Amsterdam.
Okay.
We found out after moving, so I just think there's always, it's like sliding doors, right? There's always a reason why you're going somewhere. And, if I was faced, if someone were to like offer me Amsterdam or Dubai, 100% I would have chose Dubai, if you
Hmm.
were to, but we didn't know that at the time, right?
Yeah.
But either way, we would have had to go. So I just think leaning into it, and, just don't look back, and there's going to be great things on the other side. And I think also you've done a great job of outlining ways to find a community in your newfound city. But I think that's really important, is finding your people and your support group, and it
Yeah.
can make it a lot easier to transition into that new place.
Absolutely. And I think that for anybody that's listening that is either new to this expat adventure, and I get it that everybody kind of takes their time. I have a friend that like, she's like, it takes me a year to feel comfortable, but she's also comfortable just being in her house, and that's totally okay. For me, not so much, and so I was speaking with somebody and we were talking about how it's amazing these deep friendships that you make. It's not like moving to a different state if you're in the States, moving to a different province if you're in Canada. Like it's very different. The vibe, the culture is very, very different, and it's deep and it's wonderful. And to me, it's actually less intimidating than moving from state to state, at least in my experience. So I like that. Lean in and find your community. That's really it's really wonderful. Okay, so a few of the fun general questions that I like to ask the people that come on the show. What has been your favorite thing about being an expat?
So, I would say favorite thing about being an expat. I think the opportunity to travel and see new places, I think, is ultimately what it is. And that's been one really great thing about going to a different part of the world. Now it's, you know, going to Oman and Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. It's this whole different area of the world that we have not touched. Myself personally and as a family. So it just opens up so many different travel opportunities for the family. And I really enjoy traveling and discovering new things altogether.
That's awesome. I love it. What has been your most cherished memory so far that you can share that doesn't feel too personal during your expat adventure?
I think it would probably be just the collection. I don't know if it's like one particular memory.
Okay.
But I think it's more, going back to the community. I think what's so cool about being an expat is making friends all around the world and staying in touch. Like you were saying, like even if your community isn't with you in your city, you're still always connected. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about being an expat is meeting people and staying in touch and keeping that community alive. And for me, I'm super excited because I am making my triumphant return to Paris next week. And that's what's so cool, right? It's like you and I are going to see each other in person. I'm going to see, a ton of different people that I haven't seen in a whole year. But in ways, it still feels like, we're just as close, we're just as connected as we were when we lived in Paris and Milan. But we get to, pick that up all over again. And I think that's just, so special, these relationships that you make. And, they never die. Even when you're in different countries, different sides of the world, they continue. And it's so special.
It is really special. It's really wonderful. So one last question. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us, whether it's words of wisdom or just anything that comes to mind? No pressure, by the way. If you're like, nope, that's it. But are there any last thoughts that you have?
Last thoughts. I would just say, really enjoy the ups and the downs. Because, I think, you do a great job on your podcast of talking about, the scary stuff, like the hospital stays and all of those different elements. But I think realize, that as an expat, what you're doing, often we are navigating it. Yes, we do often have our support systems and friends and family in place, but, it's a really unique experience that you have as an expat, and you're navigating so many things, ups and downs, and it's just making yourself as an individual such a powerful person to have the capabilities, because there's a lot of people that wouldn't be able to navigate this kind of stuff. And I think it's just building such character. So in the, in the harder moments, remember that, that you're building something really special for yourself and for your family. So, it's not always sunshine and lollipops, but I think overall it's a really amazing journey as an expat, and all of the moments are special. So really really savor them, because sometimes you don't know when the journey can end. I mean, ours
Yeah.
hasn't ended yet, and I hope it doesn't anytime soon. But I think that's just really important to really savor every moment, and enjoy.
I love that I love your reflection on even the hard moments. They are character building. And let me be really honest, like I don't always like that. I'm like, ugh, like I don't need a good character.
No,
But
no, totally.
it's just something that, like you said, it makes you stronger, it makes you more powerful, and it's also something that nobody can take away from you. Your location may be changed, you may not be able to control that, but all those experiences, they form you and they go with you as you go. So
Exactly. And I would say finally as well, like pass on information to people too, like that you think might be useful.
Yes.
Is to like share the knowledge as well. Because I had a family friend recently, her very good friend is moving to Dubai. And I was like, please let me pass on, my wealth of knowledge to your friend. And I think, even if it's something really small, but if it was something that made your life easier. I loved your episode. The things, I might be saying this wrong, but the things that are saving my life right now.
Yes, yeah.
Like those little things are, they might seem little to you, but they're going to help someone and, give someone some perspective on their move, or, or in their current life. So I think just, sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring, and it's like opening up a treasure chest. You've got like your expat treasure chest of like, this is what I found, take, and
Yes.
but it doesn't rob you of anything. You still have that treasure in there. You're just sharing
Yes.
it with others, and it's really, I mean, goodness gracious, this has just been a gold mine. Thank you so much. You're just a wealth of like pleasantness and joy and wisdom. Thank you so much for all that you have said and for taking your time to speak with us. It's been fantastic, Mallory. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You guys, let's just take a moment to soak all of that in. Mallory had so many great things to say, and I'm so thankful she took the time to share some of her wisdom with us. My favorite of which is her tip to just lean into it, and that you just have to jump in, which ironically really goes with the swimming metaphor I mentioned at the beginning. Not that you can't wade in slowly, but maybe when you jump in, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. You get the shock all at once, and then you can start to warm up to the water and enjoy. Speaking of enjoy, I hope that you have enjoyed this episode and that you take away something lasting and of value. I know I sure have. Now, it's time for our Shan Select for this episode. I probably should have put this pick for episode 15, Bucket List Travel as an Expat, since we did our dreaming session in Greece, air quotes there, if you will, but better late than never. Our first night in Mykonos, when we were in Greece over our spring break, we went down to the old port, and there were lots of charming restaurants there along the water. But a place called Kazarma caught my eye. It may have been the bougainvillea flowers. I might not have said that right. Just bear with me. The bougainvillea flowers arched over the entryway, or the beautiful flower arrangements and candles on the table, but most likely it was the prices on the menu, as they were actually quite reasonable and they drew us in. And another caveat, it wasn't that fancy. I make it sound super fancy, but we avoid fancy places with our children. It was just lovely. The service was excellent. The servers were attentive and adored our children, as do most Greeks in my experience. And of course, the view was spectacular, but the food was phenomenal. Everyone had something that was delicious, but I will say that I enjoyed my Greek salad and lamb meatballs, hummus, and pita bread the most. It was such a great way to kick off our vacation there, really sinking our teeth, if you will, into the culture by enjoying some of their amazing food. If you ever get the chance to visit Mykonos, I highly recommend this as your first stop. Once again, I am not an an affiliate of Kazarma at the time of this recording, and I'm not getting any kickbacks from them. Just the joy of sharing something that brought me joy with you. I will make sure to leave their Instagram handle in the show notes so you can check them out yourself. Okay, everyone, it's time for me to sign off for this episode. But as a reminder, if you are new to Expatriotical, thank you, number one, for being here if you are. And if you're not new, thank you for being here. Could you please take a moment to rate the show and leave a kind review? Not only do I love reading them, but your reviews help to boost Expatriotical up in the algorithm and make it possible for others to find our community here. Thanks, guys. I'll see you here again next week. Until then, this is Chandra Alley reminding you to live and travel in the know with Expatriotical.